Welcome back. Alright, I know I said I was gonna watch that mushroom video, but I saw this video and I was like, yo,
The
this shit looks
unusual
awesome.
objects have been washing up for
Low
about a
key
decade.
is kinda loud.
Personal possessions and bits of garbage. Entire
There you go, that
ghost
might be a
ships
little bit
without
better.
cargo or crew appear off the
This
American
shit
West
mad,
Coast. The Tohoku earthquake and tsunami,
it's my
which
vice.
devastated
It's
Japan in
about
2011,
invasive
blasted
species
pieces of
that are
tragically
eating,
disrupted lives into the sea and around the globe. And
whatchamacallit.
with the flood of stuff came hitchhikers. Huge colonies
They're
of
eating,
sea creatures suddenly able
plastic.
to cross an entire ocean. It became
Apparently.
a mass rafting event. A potential environmental disaster.
Had to zoom
a
in.
scientific mystery that's
Always
still
like
playing
unzooms
out
it for
10
some reason.
years later.
So what happens when an earth-shaking disaster flings hundreds of species across the ocean?
What kind of weather? God damn, this shit loud as hell. Mass rafting event? What does that mean? So like a storm in Africa brings a bunch of like crabs to
In June 2012, people walking along Agate
east
Beach
of
in Newport,
America?
Oregon came across a strange sight.
Oh, they're in
An
west. They're
entire
in the
Japanese fisheries dock washed up on the shore.
15 months earlier, the
So
tsunami had ripped it from the port of
look at
Osaka.
that. Boom.
It was more than
Tsunami.
60 feet long and weighed 180
The
tons.
fuck?
The dock arrived just a few miles from the Hatfield Marine Science Center, where marine ecologist Jessica Miller.
Yeah, but now they get like a free dock. Like you can just repurpose that dock. Don't give it back to the Japanese people.
Works.
You just see a massive rectangular object beached a good ways up from the access point. And we get closer and it was just covered,
Glass
over your head,
angle.
over 9 feet, with layers and layers of marine animals and algae. People were sort of
Damn.
talking about, could this come
Oh,
from
that shit kind of
Japan?
tall as
It
hell.
became pretty clear something unusual had happened.
When we got there,
Is this
the
Japan?
Police Department, Park Service,
You know that
the
butterfly
Oregon
meme?
Department of
Is
Fish
this
and Wildlife,
Japan?
all those people were there looking and wondering what they should do about it.
This huge
Is a raft
dock
really
that
an
recently
invasive
arrived
species?
on the coastline in Oregon. I think folks looked at that picture and the word was wow.
We didn't know what it all meant.
Wow.
We knew that we'd seen a spaceship. A spaceship had landed on the beach.
The fuck?
Encrusted on the dock were more than 100 tons of living
It's a
organisms,
dock, bro.
including urchins, starfish, mussels, and worms. These weren't just open ocean creatures picked up somewhere along the way. Many were coast-dwelling animals that sailed all the way to the US from Japanese shores. As far as the
Oh.
scientists knew, this was impossible.
Scientists and
What do
others
you
that
mean,
work on
though?
invasive species in the region were like, well, they shouldn't be able to survive. The ocean, these coastal species shouldn't be able to grow and thrive.
Not in
that
not an
environment.
American
What have I been
coast.
doing
These
all
are
my life
Japanese
that I could be so
animals.
wrong? Everything that you said
They shouldn't
before,
survive an
all your
American
lectures
coast.
about how things don't go across the ocean, they're all wrong.
No matter how these coastal organisms survived the journey,
So you're telling me people on the land were like, these fucking fish cannot swim across the ocean, bro. These sea animals, ain't no way. They gotta walk.
US shores, they posed an immediate ecological threat.
The dock did have
Oh,
several
no.
species
You
that
tell
were
me
on
that
the
cute-ass crab
100
is a-
list of
is a threat?
100 world's worst invasive species. And then
Come on,
if
bro.
they arrived in good condition, they could either sort of hop off, depending on what species they were, maybe a crab.
I heard
and-
every
and settle
species in
our
Australia
coastal
can be
zone,
considered
or
an
they could
invasive
reproduce
species.
and end
That's
up
because they're way
establishing
stronger
themselves on our coast, which
than
can have negative
like anything
ecological,
else.
economic consequences. Often,
Like they're way stronger than anything else that they could go to because Australia is so hard to live in, bro. Like if you put a bunch of koalas like in Asia, they would just eat everything. They would win.
a species
They would
that is
beat
not
the
native
pandas.
to an area doesn't have natural predators or other control on its abundance. It can really grow fast and expand
Why don't we
their
eat the
coverage
crabs?
to the point where they really disrupt the ecosystem.
Maybe we shouldn't be surprised that critters with names like Dead Man's Fingers and Skeleton Shrimp could have a scary ecological impact. Take the northern Pacific sea star.
Who named these
Or as
things
I like
though?
to call it,
You know?
the northern horrific sea star.
Invading sea
Ah.
stars in Australia gobbled up the sites where a creature called the
A
spotted
sperm.
handfish lays its eggs. leading
thing-
the
that thing
handfish
got
to become
hands?
critically
What
endangered.
the fuck?
The sea stars can also cause economic damage, depleting fisheries and
They're just gonna quickly just go over this fish, built like a unit. It has legs and arms, bro. It has a fucking mohawk.
critically endangered. The sea
Gonna go
stars can
over that?
also cause economic
Alright.
damage, depleting fisheries and harming the commercial shellfish trade.
So how do you make sure these potentially invasive species don't escape the dock?
I had a team just scraping and shoveling
Kill
A
it.
giant
Put
hole
bleach
up the
on it.
beach, buried everything.
deep under the sand.
Then they came with blow torches, which I think was excessive, but I'm okay with that.
To make sure there wasn't much, anything living left.
They just showed up.
You
with
think it's a little
crew
too
and
late, though?
torched it.
And we were in the lab trying to figure out what species they were. And we
Like,
would
they
get the
clearly were
microscope out,
dropping off
look out,
species on the way
start
to that
calling people
coast.
and trying to
you know?
identify what we had.
As authorities scrambled to intercept the debris and its stowaways, scientists like Miller and Chapman had a mystery to solve. Why hadn't this kind of large-scale transoceanic migration happened before? And how were these creatures staying alive so long at sea?
Meanwhile, the dock wasn't even the biggest or weirdest thing to make it across the Pacific Ocean.
What was it? She's not gonna tell us? Flotilla.
In April 2012,
Is that
up in the
Hawaii?
Gulf of Alaska, the U.S.
No,
Coast Guard
okay.
opened fire on an empty fishing boat called the Royan Maru. The 200-foot-long vessel had
Opening
drifted at
fire?
least 4,500 miles
I guess
from
you don't
Japan.
know what, like,
The
could be
owner
there.
Hokkaido
you
didn't
know?
even want it back.
Invasive barnacles weren't the only problem here. Ghost ships are dangerous, floating in and out of busy
I
shipping
did not
lanes
know
and
that this is,
potentially
like,
causing
such a
collisions.
massive deal that they have to, like, shoot it. Call the Coast Guard, apparently. Blow torch it.
Early in the afternoon,
Like
the Coast
what?
Guard started blasting the Royan Maru.
What are they blasting it with? Oh, guns. Damn, bro, you're missing a
It
lot.
finally sank at around 6:15 p.m.
Some of those species on the ghost ships can survive an amazingly long time. We know that some of those ships.
They don't
the
think those are
tsunami
gonna
debris,
survive
they're
or, like,
still
swim
out there
away.
10 years later.
Other small boats washed up in places like Hawaii, Washington, and California. One small skiff that landed in Washington after 2 years at sea arrived with a striped beakfish, a potential
Hell yeah.
invader, just casually swimming around inside. It was exhibited at the Seaside Aquarium in Oregon, thousands of miles from its home.
Is one beakfish so
and then
bad?
there was the tsunami hog. In April 2012, a beachcomber on British Columbia's Graham Island found a washed
So
up
the
Harley
invasive
Davidson
species
with
are going to
Japanese
these other
plates.
places
It was traced
via tsunamis and man-made items.
back
I
to
mean,
Miyagi Prefecture.
We
one of
really
the
have a
areas in
massive
Japan
garbage
worst
problem
hit
that
by the
we
tsunami.
don't want to
When I
deal
looked at
with.
the picture he took, I knew immediately it was my bike. It was a real eye-opener in the middle of the night.
Yokoyama donated the bike to the
How
Harley
did he know it
Davidson
was
Museum
his,
in
bro?
Milwaukee, Wisconsin,
Yep.
where he felt it
I
would
threw it.
honor
I threw that
those
one.
whose lives were lost or forever altered
Rest
by
in
the
peace.
disaster.
Rest in peace from the
Like
tsunami.
much of the other Japanese tsunami
There's
marine
so many
debris,
bikes like this.
along
How
its
does he?
journey,
How do you know
a
it was
Harley
his?
had become
Just
an
took credit for
unlikely
it?
home for barnacles and other marine life.
Sure, this is probably the first case of an arthropod riding a motorcycle across an entire ocean. But this is far from the first time an animal booked their own long-distance trip by sea.
So casual. Castaways. What
Plenty
was
of
flotilla
organisms
though?
spread themselves around
Was it
via
just
waterways.
the ghost ship
There
that
are
they were
plant
talking
seeds that
about?
evolve tiny air pockets for flotation, or waterproof coating to survive soggy situations. In fact, rafting
kinda
across
rhyming,
bodies of water
low-key.
played a big part in how animals and plants got to where they are now.
Alright, that
like
didn't
the New
rhyme at
World
all.
monkeys of Central and South America.
Cannot tell me
thought
these
to be
monkeys
descendants
swam,
from
bro.
early African primates who rode masses of dirt and plants
shit is
across the
legit.
ocean.
Wood
His
or
mustache is
pumice
legit.
can
I want one of
float
those.
around, and it is probably
Not
how
the
species
monkey,
have
the
moved around the
mustache.
globe in the past. If you walk on beaches, you'll find it everywhere.
But wood rots and sinks.
Find monkeys?
So long-distance trips across the ocean were technically
was not
freak
paying attention.
accidents, often occurring millions of years apart. What happened after the tsunami was different.
The Japanese shoreline was
This
highly
shit
developed,
different?
with buildings, docks, boats, and other infrastructure, much of it made from plastic. When a once-in-a-lifetime seismic event collided with that century of plastics buildup, it created a phenomenon the scientists had never seen before. A field of super durable seafaring garbage massive enough for colonies of creatures.
This is like that movie Ponyo. You all seen Ponyo, where they're like swimming through because like it flooded, everything flooded, and they're just swimming through like cities and everything's like underwater and shit.
To really
shit's
sink
crazy.
in their teeth, or tendrils, or whatever.
So a lot of
Tendrils.
coastal invertebrates are drifting in the water column with some ability to swim, and they need to find a hard substrate. But now you had millions of tons of debris out there that could settle everywhere. They would land on a refrigerator or a tire or
Is
a
that so
tree
bad, though?
and make their way across the Pacific.
This rafting event was unique because the sheer size of the
It's
debris
weird what we
field
try to
allowed
preserve
so
and
many
what we're like,
hitchhikers
yeah,
to
let that
survive.
shit die off.
The colonies became pretty diverse, and with the
Like,
floating
who is
objects so
deciding
close
these,
together,
the fate of
rafters
these
had
animals?
plenty of opportunities to eat or mate with each other. But it also forced scientists to reckon with how plastics have permanently changed how our oceans function.
Plastic debris has created a bridge across the ocean. The ocean used to be a barrier that prevented things from spreading. Now this debris has created this surface across the ocean that's doing all these things that we don't know about, that we're only...
Bro, I love that we're like worried about these fucking animals being invasive somewhere else, but we don't give a shit about all this plastic. Like, let's get rid of the plastic. Fuck the animals eating the other animals. That's just Darwinism.
For it is
Bro, we're here polluting everything. Let's destroy what we're polluting.
The new pelagic environment that's created by this plastic debris that's almost indestructible.
It underscores the future interaction between our growing population and our coastal development and sea level rise and climate change and increasing storm frequencies, potentially making this type of event less of a once in a lifetime.
How did we make something so indestructible as plastic?
Even with all the creatures the tsunami hurled
like, if you-
across the ocean.
Like, you could burn plastic, but then it becomes plastic air molecules. So it's still in the air, and you can still breathe it. It can still seep into the ground. It can grow in plants. Like, how did we make plastic and just make it so indestructible?
It seems like at least this
Chills
time,
like rice.
we got lucky. 10 years later, there's no evidence that any of the potentially invasive rafters have successfully established themselves in North America, though only time will tell for sure.
That we haven't found the introduced species does not mean that they're not there. It means we haven't found them. That's all it means.
I feel like they're just really
And while
worried
the
about the
stream
wrong
of
fucking
tsunami
thing.
debris has finally slowed to a trickle, there are still 2 entire docks, just like the one that washed up in Oregon, that no one ever found.
Where are they? They're in the ocean or they're on a beach somewhere?
Where are
The docks
they?
are exceedingly well made, and so it's unlikely they sank. So it's not clear where they are or when they might show up.
They're just vibing.
Yeah, it'll be marine debris.
The need is now, and it is urgent. Those are the words of an Oregon state senator on the tsunami
This
debris
was missing the
cleanup.
big
My
news in
constituents
2012. This is
be
all
very honest
2012
with you, are
shit.
asking, with this debris already here, what's the plan? How are we going to deal with this?
I never heard of
and
this
how
10
are we
years
gonna
ago.
Clean it up.
It must be so much worse now.
Trillions of little bits of styrofoam scattered all over everything. It's kind of an impossible job.
There was a lot of work to be done. The first tsunami debris was styrofoam chunks and
Beachcomber.
oyster culture floats.
Beachcomber.
They're like big black jelly beans.
Russ Lewis is a retired Bureau of Land Management ecologist
just wanna
and
bite
a
'em.
longtime Washington beachcomber.
Starting in 2012, I started picking up trash, and I've been doing
That's
that
cool.
for
Like, that's
10
cool,
years
yeah.
now.
Probably
Couple
does that as a
thousand trips
hobby.
to the beach. And
Sorry, did you say a couple thousand?
yeah, we're out there,
Wow.
during the winter time,
That's
maybe,
a lot of time.
4 or 5 trips a week.
Oh, does
'cause
he turn
stuff's
it
coming
into
in,
sculptures?
and you got to keep
Oh wait,
ahead
that's a
of it.
toy.
Russ Lewis would walk the beach every day and picking up trash.
It's like an
and
artist,
documenting what
right?
he saw. And so then he's basically
That's pretty
kept
cool.
a dumpster of tsunami debris and would log it assiduously every day.
He is a very observant person, and he recognized the tsunami debris and he kept track of it.
I was collecting specimens for John Chapman and some others. Any potential tsunami debris, check it over for any kind of marine life that's attached to it, and label it, bag it up, and put it in your freezer.
What were some of the craziest
Puts more
things
plastic in plastic, and then
or
instead of
unnatural that
trying to
you
get
saw
rid of it,
arrive on the beach?
I found a couple of mannequin heads.
he puts it away and stores it.
And I picked up
Stores
60
more dirt.
wheels in one season.
There was a little Buddha, a really cool wooden Buddha.
Some
Give me
trash
that.
has a
I want
story
that.
to tell.
You find these things and you try to find the people. They may not be alive. And luckily, I think 9 items that we've gotten returned to people, we've found them all safe and well.
David Baxter is a radar communications technician on a small island in the northern Gulf of Alaska.
It's really a magnet for marine debris.
He and his wife Yumi were the first people to return tsunami-swept items
Probably
to
because
their
it's like a
owners
shore,
in Japan.
you know?
It all started when David found a soccer
Here's your
ball
shit back.
covered in Japanese writing.
He had his full names, in his
That's kind of legitness.
name. So that we pinpoint that for sure that came from Tohoku. We weren't sure that he's still alive either, because you saw the pictures of what happened over there, and it was just so sad.
Well, here we go. We're packing.
2012 just built different.
Soccer ball.
This is all just
With the help
tsunami
of
stuff.
government agencies and the Japanese media, they found the
That's
ball's
the
owner,
vibe I'm getting as
a
an empath.
16-year-old
This is all from
tsunami
tsunami
survivor
stuff.
in Rikutsen, Takata.
I'd never have imagined.
Took
that
me
my football
15
could have
minutes in a
travelled thousands of
17-minute
kilometres
video
and make it all the way to Alaska.
to
I've yet
realize
to
what this
recover a
video was
single one
about.
of my personal belongings, so I'm really happy about
That was
this.
dope. He got his soccer
Since
ball
then,
back.
the Baxters have kept working to connect people with these
Football.
mementos of their pre-disaster lives.
He like writes more
We've
shit on it.
traveled to the Tohoku region 3 times. There's a restaurant sign
Excuse me.
that we returned Minami Senriku, this
That
dear
was
lady that
news.
became a good friend
This
of
was
ours.
news.
It just,
Like,
I think,
yeah.
behooves us to
My shop is
try
broken,
to
but
connect
thank you.
with the people and try to become friends with other people in the world.
Even amid a devastating
I kinda look
humanitarian
like my dad.
crisis, when the debris started to wash up on foreign
That's
shores,
funny.
Japan created a gift fund, directing millions of dollars to U.S. states dealing with the influx.
The Japanese government felt very responsible, even though they were dealing with their own catastrophe of the tsunami and Fukushima. They felt responsible for the
Oh, my
debris
ear itches,
that
bro.
they were sending our way. So they contributed nearly $1 million.
I mean, they're not really sending it,
remove
you know?
that dock.
Like,
Japanese environmental
a
nonprofits
tsunami sent
led
that.
delegations of volunteers to help clean up North American shores.
Richmond?
They've arrived on
What's
our shores
BC?
for a unique vacation. 70 Japanese students are headed to the beaches of Ucluelet to clean up debris washing up on our shores from the
Yeah,
2011
clean.
Japanese tsunami.
Fucking
One thing that I
clean,
look
let's
at
go.
Is the closeness of the people from
That's a
Japan
dope
to
jacket.
Alaska. You know, we're across
That's
the
a
Pacific
dope jacket.
Ocean, but we're really connected as
That little
people
octopus on there?
because of the ocean.
The oceans are 70%
And it's,
of
like,
the
mad
planet.
vibrant.
They have a lot of the food and the climate control that we need to stay as a viable species on the planet. And so keeping that a functioning ecosystem, I think, is a really
Does it
important
seem like everyone is
goal of
smiling while they're
humanity.
talking about this?
The world is just smaller than it's ever been. And while that
Facts.
might mean new ecological threats, in a way, it's also a comforting thought.
Shifting climates and growing natural disasters are a planetary problem. So we're gonna have to stick close if we want to survive.
I still feel like they should be more worried about the trash rather than the animals. But I mean, it was a pretty cool documentary. I didn't really know. I think I've heard about the tsunami, but I mean, I could not tell you if I could pinpoint it to 2012. Definitely heard of a lot of tsunamis and like the Japanese nuclear fusion thing leak. But all right, I will definitely watch that mushroom video at some point this week.